Good day, Good Shepherd. Today we are interviewing some of the matriarchs of Good Shepherd. And in this case there, we have Miss Valena McCants, a member of Good Shepherd from the days that it was on State and Warren Street. She has raised a son and grandchild in Good Shepherd and all. So let us begin. When did you first join Good Shepherd?
Well, Robbie, I put it like this. That's a phase of our history that has always been eliminated, and nobody has talked about it. So I would call this is my story because uh, we came to Good Shepherd by by choice and force. Uh, the the congregation from down the bay where we came from, the church was being closed. It had closed. It was a congregational church, and that's the story that nobody hardly talks about too much. And so when the congregational church was being dissolved, we were being unchurched. We didn't have anybody. But I I wanted to tell that. I wanted to tell that part of the story. And so that's been kind of difficult, but haven't been sent the information. I'll try to do what I can, and I'll paraphrase the words that were in the gospel or in the readings a Sunday or so ago. Those words were taken from Jeremiah, and I paraphrase. I was born and was created by God before I even knew that I had to do this. I was a prophet, but yet I am an adult elder. And that's what I am trying to do today. If I make it through, fine, and give you some points, all right. But if not, I wanted you to know that it's been a long journey. And when we came from this part of town, south part of town, that was in the 30s, the Depression. We were the Depression generation. And I guess you would say that was the late 20s, early 30s, World War I, all like that. World War I had ended, then it was World War II. And so that's one of the main things that I wanted to get over. Then the next thing, we didn't have a church. Everybody walked. Your parents, your grandparents can tell you that. We had a difficult time getting to church. And so Mr. Frank Fields evidently was appointed as our leader to try to get somebody to help us. And lo and behold, a white priest came along. His name was J.W. Fulford. And he was a minister to the seamen up on Dearborn and Government. And then he came and helped us. Now, we were crazy about Father Fulford because he had a car. And he would put us all in that little trunk of his. We were just happy, as young people, we could squeeze in there some kind of way. And so we kept on, and he labored with us. Mr. Frank Fields had a house up here on on Dearborn, and he even helped Mr. Frank, or Mr. Frank helped him make an altar in that house. But we didn't like going in no house. That wasn't church. So eventually, the members from the old congregational church, we took instructions. That is, our parents, because I think at the time they said that the young people had to be 13 before you could be uh, what do you call it? Confirmed. And so that's what happened. Now, some of the old people were like Miss Anna Minor. I won't go on to call the names because it would be a little too much, I believe, be a little lengthy. But anyway, Mr. Fields, I think, was a friend to Mr. Clinton Velasco. See, they worked downtown. They were postmen. And having worked downtown, and Mr. Velasco's mother, Miss Janie Velasco, you've heard that name. Well, they sought, kind of put it together. Bill Velasco was a superintendent of Sunday school. They lived down on Warren Street. So as children, we would walk from Warren Street on over to Good Shepherd. And then we had activities and just enjoyed it, But the older people couldn't do that walk. And on Sundays, you had to catch a streetcar. And so the streetcar, you had to still walk to try to get there. So that's the part that has been eliminated from the history, I think, for years. Now, when we came over to Good Shepherd, it was families like Miss Tilla Flo, and I think Miss Tilla is about the only one who was really active. Miss Beck, her mother, they weren't that active, but they would always come on I guess once a year, to that meeting. But Miss Tia was very loyal, and she had children. Ruth, she had sons, and so we just kept on, And at the time, Father May was there, and I don't think you even remember anything about Father May, but only your cousin Mary Carolyn. You see, they came along during that time. As a matter of fact, the house that Mary Carolyn and all of them lived in was at the foot of State Street, right there by the Marine. It was the Marine Hospital at the time. Well, we kept on until we were, some of us were confirmed. And the adults like Miss Anna, Miss McLean was already there. Her mother was there. And they lived in, Miss McLean lived in North Carolina, I think. But she did come home at that time. And Miss Thompson lived on Wannock Avenue. I remember that. So you see, my story goes way back. And I thought that it should be told. Now, what I'd like to do, I would like to kind of let you know who the priests were at that time. It was Father Cole, and Father Cole did a lot, evidently, in bringing about cohesiveness, as well as did something for the community. Now, he had a wife who was also a good mate. And they started even a daycare. It was a small daycare. See, it was a two-story house, but Good Shepherd owned a, a, another house behind there before you get to the Alexanders. Now, you know, it's always been Alexanders there. And so when Father May didn't last too long, I guess he was at retirement, but his daughter taught, and Mrs. May taught the boys uh, Sunday school. But I'm going to digress at this time and tell you a little bit more about Father Cole. Father Cole started a good little daycare because one of my nieces, Jane, went there. Uh, it was run very nicely, and quite a few of the children from in that area. There was no such thing, you know, as a daycare then. So that's the way that went. After Father Cole left, there was a John W.B. Thompson. John W.B. Thompson came after Father Cole, and he lived, if you recall, no, you can't recall, but he lived out on the creek. And we were being forced out from up there by the Elks. That was the school board was buying all of that. Because across the street, some of our members did live, like Miss Scott, who taught she was a librarian at Talladega. Quite a few of our members, mature members, older members, like Dr. Gould, they went to Talladega, and so they came to Good Shepherd. Now, Miss Scott would come home once a year. Now, the only way I think I could get you to remember her is her picture is in the parsonage over there at Good Shepherd. If you see a nice looking lady, that's Miss Scott. She never married, and she would just come maybe twice a year because her people, her mother, her daddy, they lived right on the corner. So when we had to give up that property, the school board wanted it. Mr. Malone, a tailor was back there teaching classes. Most of us, when we would go to church, we would go in the back. The Sunday school room was set up almost like the church, and the old church was just beautiful. It had just the choir loft, everything, and Miss Jamie Stewart taught us how to sing. She was an excellent choir person. If the Alexander girls decided to come, then we could have a choir because it was quite a few of the Alexanders. So we stayed there on State and Congress until the church had been dissolved and John W.P. Thompson had gone out there along with the vestry people, and they designed that church. I think it was, I don't know whether it was the church decided or rather it was the architect, John W.B. Thompson, and the vestry, I think, did that because we had no part in it. Then when it was a creek and the creek rose, that was when John W.B. Thompson moved up in the parsonage. He's one of the few that lived in the parsonage. He and Father Proudy. Father Proudy lived in the parsonage. And then we had Father Dunham. He never did live in the parsonage. He lived over on Palmetto Street. Then after then, it was a Calvin Griffin. Some of you may remember him. He came from North Carolina. And then we had, between that, it was Father Cumbie. Then we had a lady at that time, Mother Jacqueline Rowe, came from Florida. And then after, I think she got sick, so Father Ford wasn't assigned to us, but he decided to come and give us help for a long time. He and his wife, we enjoyed him. In the meantime, we've had a Father Hicks. We've been through a lot of priests. And then a very dear lady was Mother Nancy before we got Father George. So I just thought I would let you go through, some of you remember some of the priests. Now, going back to the historical part, when most of us were confirmed, we were confirmed by Bishop Carpenter or a Bishop McDowell. And at that time, when we did not have a priest, we had a priest would come, Father Wakefield. He would come once a month and give us communion. I don't think he was very happy in coming over, because as soon as he finished, he would go right on. But insofar as really spending time with a priest, we spent happy times with Father Cole, and then other times when the other priests, they were white, they spent a little time with us, but not as much as a black priest. I put it like that. Insofar as I remember, Good Shepherd has not had a very large congregation. It was always a good size, but it had to be special occasions. And then when we did have some good times over by the Elks, it was when our parents had a bazaar, and they would have some good gumbo and good everything, and we enjoyed, everything about the church, and had good times. Other than that, you can remember people. All of them are gone now. Miss Helen Petty, my mother, Miss Audrey, all those people, they've been gone. Well, to make a long story short, when the church did merge, most of us came from Good Shepherd. That's the thing I wanted to be very, very clear. Miss Lydia Jones evidently came during earlier days when I was there as well, because she had several sons. Bernard is one of her sons that you remember and still comes around. Those boys went to the school St. Augustine in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that is where several of her children, her boys, went. Now, I want us to remember that there were others in our church who went to St. Augustine years ago. Maybe the most famous one was Ellis Johnson. Ellis got a PhD. He was a doctor, and eventually, I think he became like a priest. But even so, he spent a lot of time with us at the Episcopal Church. His sister Sadie went to St. Augustine. Again, like I said, I think others in the LaFleur family went because Ruth LaFleur and I were along together, and Ruth did go to St. Augustine too. There were other good things that happened during Father Cole's time. Father Cole would also take a group of children like Daisy, like Scott. You remember Scott? They were girls, and they were some that went up to Goris. That was another church school. So all of this was done by Father Cole. I wouldn't ever want you to forget that. I wouldn't ever want you to forget that Lydia did have 3 boys, I think, went to St. Aug. Now, whether all of them finished, but the one who did finish was a superintendent of schools up in North Carolina. So you see, it was a lot of history that came over with those of us who came from the old school Emerson, the Congregational Church. We've had through the years quite a few people who were organists other than Miss Stewart. When Miss Stewart left, following was J.D. Whitfield. He was a newcomer to Mobile. He came here to teach, and he taught at Mobile County Training School and then went on to Central. You might remember Blanche Hammond. You might also remember Adele Hall. You remember Myrna Pratt. And then our final one that you may remember is James Lacey. Is that it? I believe he's the one. Lacey, I think, died not long ago, I think,
Correct.
from what I
Yes.
pick up. All right. Now, as far as I can remember, we've only had, for years, you didn't have but a senior warden was Mr. Alexander, and the treasurer was Mr. Ben Wilson. We didn't have all this, election and so forth. They remained right where they were. I think Becky Taylor might have been the first woman that we ever had as a senior warden. And I don't think she lasted too long, but I believe Miss Jones was serving during that time. It was during, I think, John W.B. Thompson's time, Father Dunham's time, that our eyes were open to going to Beckwith Lodge.
No, Father Thompson.
Father Thompson. All right, Father Thompson was the one that opened our eyes. Instead of having to go way you had to go take the children like Tyra Berry and my nieces. You had to take them up to way up to Oak Valley. They used to have to go. their daddies would have to drive them that far and then go back up there to pick them up. That would be Tara Bearer, her sister, and Pat and Jane, because we were trying to give them the exposure of going to camp. And then when it was found out they could go to camp right over there at Beckwith Lodge, that was another time we had good times. Those were big picnics we had over there, weren't they?
Yes.
And it looked like the church they would turn out to go to the picnics. We also, some of us enjoyed going to church there. They would have church. Now, everybody didn't go to church, but quite a few of us did go to church. All of us have had experiences in the Episcopal Church, I think, that are comparable to good times, but we haven't always been a body that participated in everything. In recent years, they have tried to include us in a lot of the activities, but somehow or another, all of us don't seem to mesh. For instance, when Anne Green and her family came, she did very soon. She began, and Mr. Green, they participated in a lot of the activities that the diocese put us through at the time. She was one of the first ones to go to convention, I think, out in Indianapolis. And she went and participated. She would participate along with people like, she's still in the church, I think, Kit Caffey. Those were names that I remember right off. And I've had interviews with Kit Caffey. We did a lot of trying to participate with Wilma Hall. I've been on the board at Wilma Hall, but it was a token. The same way Curtis Flakes has been on the Wilma Hall board, but we didn't have that much say. But we were there. And so I would admonish us, when we hear the call to help now Wilma Hall, we should go in our pockets and try to help, because Wilma Hall is now being serviced more or less by whites, but most of the participants are Black. It is just about all Blacks, and they might be from Mississippi. I don't know if they locally. Then, up to this date, I still say one of the biggest things that any of us could do when we come to church, give it all you have. It's going to take money even after this COVID is over. I don't know how what you call it, your tithes are due. You have done your might, but all of us need to try to do our might. All of us need to try to do what we can to keep the church open, because I don't think we ever want to go back to being a mission. And it takes money that we're going to have to pay to the diocese. You're going to have to pay money locally. And I think they've done a good job with helping us thus far, but they're not going to keep on helping us. We've gotten some grant help, but we need more for ourselves. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel good when you have done your mite. Now, that's about all I have to say. And that's been quite a bit, hasn't it?
Well, no, well, in that, what would you say, you know, you've kind of gone over the history and stuff there, but what would you say was your fondest memory at Good Shepherd?
My fondest memory had to be when I christened my 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 son at the old church. I believe he was the last one to be christened at the old church. And then there was a happiness when my granddaughter. Uh, those are cherished memories that I have.
Um, Being a matriarch at Good Shepherd and with your love and caring and protection for us, is there any advice, other than saying tide, or
But just be a participant. Come there, come there and do everything that you can. For instance, uh, prior to the COVID, it used to be a little group of us that would meet every Wednesday, and that was a group that pulled some of our members that never would have done anything, but we enjoyed the fellowship, and I think we would love to be able to gather again. And those of us that can get a ride or can drive, you see, but there's still a lot that we can do if we would just come. You can do the pots outside. You can water the plants. It doesn't mean that you have to be young. It's a lot that you can do. Like I say, it's always going to be, it appears to me, an Alexander who will come back if you just touch them. And I think that's important. You can't depend on one or two to do everything. I don't know if one or two people can do. You got to have a team. It's got to be you good at one thing, I'm good at something else, but it takes teamwork. That's what the Lord was all about. He wasn't just Jesus alone. He pulled others with him. And that's what we got to do. I hope you're listening.
yes,
You need to learn how to do. You can't wait on the priest to bring you in. I think when Eric, I hate to say that, but I think when Eric came, his father-in-law was the one responsible. Mr. Lewis had been a good member up in Huntsville, up somewhere near Alabama A&M. I think that's how they came to the shepherd. And so all of us have to do our part with bringing others. You take, like, when the Holders came, they came from down in Mississippi. They found that church on the internet. That's how they came. And we're sorry that, well, they did everything they could while they were here, but I understand they will be going to Africa very soon for so many years. But we look forward to them coming back. I don't know who brought Dr. Johnson Haynes there, but he's an excellent member. Will do, I think, whatever he can to help us clean up the church when we go back in. It takes input from a lot of different people to get us over the COVID.
Yeah.
And I think that's about as much history as I can bring.
Hello to all of my friends in the Deputies of Color who are gathering this day